Yeah, the one, Rocky Mountain Sports Report, yeah, live and direct. Keep them shook, defend like Champ Bailey and Adam Foote, no joking. I'll block it out like Jokic, and now you see him blurry. Lost in the rain of threes from Jamal Murray. Oh, step up to the plate. Colorado landscape outstanding, reporting all the facts in. We out the park like black men, or better yet, Chuck Nasty.
Hey, good evening, everybody. It's David, joined by Matt and Keith. Sorry, drew a blank right there. I'm like, what's this guy's name? Good thing it's right there on the screen. So here to go over to Denver Broncos' disappointing performance today. But first, let's thank our sponsors. We got Stoked to Fire, the barbecue superstore in Loveland, Colorado. Hit up Frank for all of your barbecue needs. We got Avacor Mobile Power Wash. Hit them up for your power washing needs, and it's more along the commercial lines, so don't call them to come power wash your trash cans or anything at your house. So Chavez Customs LLC, they can put your logo on anything. Check them out on Facebook. They can hook you up. And then Well Seasonings and Blends. Check them out for some good barbecue seasonings and a fajita seasoning that we just released not too long ago. All right, gentlemen.
All right. Well, where do we even start? I mean, it was at the start of the game, it felt like, hey, we were on something. We got a couple good. I mean, first drive stall, but we were able to get some points on, second quarter. It felt like we were going to kind of go down this trend of sticking to that game plan, and it just, the wheels fell off. That's just what happened.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the start of the game, back and forth, no one was doing anything. We had a punt from each team twice before the Broncos finally put 7 points on the board, as fan goes in. So, but then after that, boy, like you said, that's the funny thing. I've been on here talking. We haven't been the first to score points in a game yet. We haven't been the first to score points. We finally scored points first. We put up 7, and it's like we got really excited, and everything went out the window from there. So,
right.
I mean, I get it. All right, go ahead, Dave.
I saw Teddy struggle against a good defense.
Yeah.
I think we all drank the Kool-Aid a little too early when we beat 3 of the worst teams in the NFL. And Nat, and I don't want to pile on Teddy, but we sort of understand why Carolina was willing to part with him and also pay part of his salary to get rid of him. I mean, he's good when Denver can control the game, but as soon as things start going wrong, I just saw Teddy not as poised as he has looked in the first 3 games of the season.
I mean, definitely think the composure for Teddy was rattled today. I mean, I think a lot of that had to do with the interior offensive line injuries. And eventually, we knew the wide receiver, as much as we love Cortland Sutton, as much as we love Tim Patrick, the injuries of Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler, having those guys that could open up the realistic yards after catch, were depleted. We're depleted in that area. We don't have anyone that can be that consistent threat now with those guys gone. Yeah. And then today it just seemed like the game plan was shifted. It was just completely different game plan. And the part that I don't understand is why fix something that's not broken? So we dominated time of possession the last 3 weeks. That was the mentality we needed to come out with today. That was the game Baltimore wanted to play themselves. And it just seems like we went with this overzealous and aggressive game plan with all these offensive injuries kind of piled up. And it just seemed like it was just the perfect recipe for this offense to come crashing down to reality.
Yeah. And everybody out there watching, go ahead and shoot us your comments on what you think went wrong. Can we fix it? I mean,
Dave, I want to circle back too. I mean, pile in those comments. I'd love to get all the comments, questions, see if we can all come up with some answers. But are you putting this completely on Teddy Bridge? This is
absolutely
who
not.
Teddy
No,
Bridgewater
absolutely
is.
not.
No, I mean, this is who Teddy Bridgewater is. This is what you can expect in a less than favorable game for the Broncos every single time. Is that what you're saying, or do you think there's more?
No, I think there's more to it. I think Matt hit it. The protections in the middle of the interior of the offensive line. I think that they were. He didn't have a lot of time to throw. And he just looked a little rattled. It seemed like he didn't know what to do when that pressure came.
Yeah.
Unlike in the first 3 weeks, pressure had come and he was very good in the pocket, and today it was just different. But I think there was so much more pressure too.
Agreed.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
No, I'm not trying to say this is who Teddy is, but I think it's a glimpse of
what he can be.
Who's Teddy has been in the past, and does he revert back to it is my fear.
Yeah, and I really do think a lot of it comes from those interior offensive line injuries, and I think because our tackles, even Lloyd Cushenberry, is trying so hard to make up for some of those miscues that we were seeing from those inexperienced guards. It took away what would typically be his escape route, because we see him in that pocket and he's poised and he trusts the pocket, but he trusts his tackles even more when he's doing those fancy spins to evade out and still be able to plant his feet again and make a throw.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't able to see that today because there was so much going on. They were sending so much, and that interior was so overwhelmed. We're seeing tight ends, running backs, the tackles trying to pile it all on, and they just were overwhelmed, and eventually it just got to Teddy, and he was overwhelmed.
Yeah. We are praying for Teddy, by the way.
Yeah, definitely. That's where I was going to go real quick right now.
And hopefully he is in. And I saw a comment earlier, and somebody said it was the ref's fault. It's not the ref's fault that Teddy got a concussion.
No.
No, they didn't call a penalty on it, but calling a penalty wouldn't have stopped him from getting a concussion.
No.
So, the offensive line just didn't protect him.
Yeah, that's exactly what Deanna Hendry's following up with here.
Right. And we talked about this at the beginning of the season, was the lack of depth on our offensive line. Experience. And today it really showed.
Yeah. It was the one place we did have some. We were very young to begin with when we started off the season, so it's not like we had this experienced group of offensive line when we were trotting out, even when we were perfectly healthy and had all our starters going out. And then to go on to it, there was no real depth. We were searching for that right tackle all off season, all during spring training, hoping someone would come to the occasion. You know what I mean? So just goes to show kind of where we were at, and it showed up today. Being down a couple guys in the middle, and relying on a second-year center to try to man that up was overwhelming. And that's where the pressure came for the most part. It broke down in the middle, and then if it breaks down in the middle, then the outside becomes non-escapable as well. You know what I mean? There's no way to just run left and right, not with the way they had a good defensive front. So,
yeah, absolutely. When Teddy gets when we're healthy again, I do think, we're going to bounce back. Next week, hopefully we see a bounce back. Losses are going to happen. It's early in the season. By no means does this one loss define who this team is. If there is one thing that I would say this loss does define, though, is how easily outcoached our coaching staff can be. We seen them get outcoached today, and they abandoned a game plan that was working in the previous 3 weeks. And then after this game plan that they've adjusted to, wasn't working after halftime, we didn't see any adjustments. We came out running the same exact stuff. And you know, personnel issues were across the way because I mean, Drew Lock was sacked 3 times. His pocket was constantly under pressure. Could Drew Lock have made a couple better throws? Absolutely. Could Teddy Bridgewater have made some better throws today? Absolutely. There was a couple really poorly placed balls by Teddy Bridgewater today. But,
this is, I mean, if I want to give credit to the other side of the ball, the defense for the Baltimore Ravens showed up in ways that I don't think that we were expecting at all. I think it was pretty obvious just because of where both Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater struggled. Drew Lock because it's who Drew Lock is, and Teddy Bridgewater can typically get past this, but first read is gone.
Right.
Second read was gone. You know what I mean? You're having to go to a third read or come back to a second or first in order to get a completion on most of our passes. If not, we're throwing into bad coverage or we're taking sacks. Right. Or we're scrambling around, you know what I mean? Throwing incomplete. You know, it was,
you're trying to get through all those progressions, like Keith is saying, and the line is not supporting you. You know, I mean, it's a losing combination right there. Baltimore had a great game plan. They came in
absolutely.
They outcoached us. Our defensive game plan was very poor. I mean, how many times did we see receivers just running wide open? Is it missed assignments? Was it a poor call? I mean,
you're leading me right into where I wanted to go right here because there's a player I need to call out right now, and that's Justin Simmons. I mean, you've been touted as one of the best coverage safeties today, and you were burned for over 120 yards today. Over 120
today
yards.
Was a very bad day for Justin Simmons.
He blew the coverage on the Hollywood Brown play. He blew the 2 coverage plays against Mark Andrews to set them up to get to the other points that they got. Mm-hmm. He just struggled today.
Yeah, PS2 looked like a rookie today.
Yeah, he got
PS2. He didn't. He had a rough day as well. You know, I won't give that Hollywood Brown touchdown just completely on Simmons because Hollywood Brown did a fantastic job of splitting those 2 safeties, and he's one of the fastest guys out on the field. You know what I mean? Too. He set up those 2 safeties fantastic. For the play, and had a layout to get it, and actually caught the ball that he hasn't caught.
Why couldn't he pull a Detroit Lions replay, man?
Yeah,
but it's too late now.
It was a beautiful pass and a beautiful catch. I mean, not going to take anything away from Hollywood Brown. He made up for the 3 drops against Detroit, I guess.
Oh yeah.
That was a tough one to. If he would have broke out to the right and Simmons would have been having to cover him fully, that actually went more on Jackson.
Yeah, and that's what I thought too. When I saw the replay, I thought it was more on Jackson than it was on Simmons.
Yeah, essentially they were both supposed to be dropping deep. They both got lost. Simmons turned outside thinking Hollywood was going to continue to go out towards his side, towards that pylon.
Yeah.
He just broke it straight down the middle, and neither one of them reacted. It was just terrible. They just played it perfectly.
But I'll 100% agree with you. There's not very many times that we come on here and we say Simmons had a bad day. Simmons looked terrible out there, and this is a day that you can definitely put that into a talking point today.
Right.
So,
and I'm a huge Simmons supporter, so it takes a lot for me to want to call him out. But I mean, he could have played better today. I mean, there's probably a bunch of players we could hammer out and say could have played better. I mean, but real quick, just Kenny Kirkpatrick coming at us, a ton of adversity, faced a team that was coming off a lot of momentum from last week. Absolutely. Ravens coming off a victory last week. They came in here and got another one.
Yep.
But just real quick, throw a plug over to Kenny over at K&K Sports Show. Go check them out. They got tons of good stuff. 3 shows a week, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. There's a fantastic group, and we got a Broncos fan over there in Kurt Valenti, so give them a listen. Go check them out, K&K Sports. So there's a question that keeps popping up here in this comments. It's do you think Teddy would have kept us in the game?
No.
I don't think he would. I mean, it's hard because we can't justify what it woulda, shoulda, could have. But what we could ask ourselves is, would the adjustments that we were wanting to see have been made by Teddy? Would he, because Teddy's the veteran, he's a smart quarterback, would he have taken that veteran, leadership and his skill set to put the game back in where he was comfortable attacking the short to intermediate routes and focusing on the run game. Because we do know that if compared to who this coaching staff has confidence in, we know it's Teddy. With him being the veteran, would they allow him to make those adjustments at the line of scrimmage? Do you think that would be the big difference maker from where we were at, in my opinion? But would it have been enough? I mean, who knows? At that point, it was only a 7-point game.
Dave, do you want to, or do you want me? Do you want to go?
Go ahead, Keith.
For me, the only time I see that they're actually giving him that is when they're in the hurry up. When they're in the hurry up and he's calling plays at the line of scrimmage, I could see him getting into that mindset. And coming down the stretch of the end of the game when maybe we still had possibilities to still be in it, maybe Teddy could have kept us in that game. But otherwise, the game plan was the game plan. And they were trying to run what they thought they were. I don't understand. They wanted to run into a brick wall, obviously, because they completely changed from what they were doing and was going good. Soon as we scored that touchdown and went to something for the entire rest of the game that we just ran our head into. Mm-hmm. And it was just amazing to watch time. And I really thought, okay, second half, come out here. We know that, we probably know that Locke's going to have to be coming out there to start at least. You know what I mean? We need to change our game plan. We need to not only change our game plan from what we were doing, but also we have to also play to, Locke's strengths versus Teddy's strengths. And we didn't see anything like that. I saw one series where he started to look good, and it looked like we were putting together. And I can't remember. Something obviously derailed it because we only put up 7 points today, boys.
Right. I don't think Teddy would have made the game may have been a little more competitive. I don't think that Teddy would have made that big of a difference. Going back to what Keith said, we scored that first touchdown. Things were working. We had a game plan, and then all of a sudden, Pat, I don't know what happened up in the coaching booth. Pat just decided he had this revelation that, hey, this is going to work, and it didn't work. But I'm not going to put this all on the offense. I'm not going to put it all on Pat Shurmur. The defense was horrible as well. And Victor said it earlier. This was an all-around team loss.
Yeah, absolutely.
Special teams. When does Tom McMahon get fired? How do you run special teams out there every week and they're not prepared and they give up a big play every single week?
It's special teams is the hardest one to justify because all of those players know that they have it's the same responsibility. It's not a play. It's not. It's the same responsibility. Man your own. I mean, how much more you're given what you're given as a special teams coordinator, and I mean, it's kind of the player's responsibility to engage in what their only responsibility is, and that's stay true to your lane. It's hard to say like, "Hey, Tommy, man, you're fired. Let's bring in Jeffrey Smith, and it's going to make a difference." It's the hardest one to justify.
It's just so frustrating to especially on that return. We didn't keep containment. Simple as that. I mean, I've never seen a guy run so horizontally across the field to then turn up the corner and still get 30 yards. It's been a long time since I've seen anything like that. It's not like we're talking about, Tyreek Hill back there. You know what I mean? It's not the fastest guy in the NFL. I mean, it was just complete breakdown. So I agree with what you're saying. You're only given what you're given. But at the same time, I don't know how that isn't coached into that individual, that you cannot let that guy get around you. You have to let that. You have to turn it upfield.
The thing about it though is that's something that's coached in you from Pee Wee. Like that's the same speech Tommy McMahon's given them is the same coach Pete Villa gave me at 6 years old. You can't lose containment. You have one job. Stay true to your lane. Of course there's going to be different things where they're trying to shift things and do blocks or whatever. Of course, containment things going to change on that. But it's pretty simple. Stay true to what you got to do. You got one lane. Stay to your lane. You're responsible for your lane.
And
I think I know the name of the next. We get rid of McMahon. Matt Stafario.
Let's do it.
special teams coach. It sounds like he's got it all figured out.
Yeah.
I mean, I might
easy.
have to. I can step in and do special teams.
It's easy, right? It's easy, right?
It should be easy, but it's something. It's about Denver has not been able to do two things for the last 5 years: cover tight ends and cover on punts. We just can't get it figured out.
Yeah, special teams always has some sort of blunder in games. It seems like. I'm just wondering how long Tom McMahon sticks around.
Yeah,
I mean, at this point, if we see these same mental mistakes and lapse of judgment, the question will then become once again, how long does this coaching staff stick around?
Yeah, I mean, but you're right though. It could be one of those things at some point that McMahon. I mean.
You got to let it
go. It's also probably like you said. It's not like you're replacing your defensive coordinator in week 6. You know what I mean? Right. It's like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? Holy cow! Now
we're changing a whole philosophy and everything. But you get rid of a defensive a special teams guy, and bring in another guy and tell him fill your lane, right, Matt?
I mean that's the basics of special teams. Stay true to your lane and wrap up. You got one. Nobody else matters. There's 11 players that you're responsible. You only have one player you're responsible for, and it's the guy who has the damn ball in his hand. Stay true to your lane and make the tackle. I mean, that's just what it is. But we can't seem to put that together. That's just unfortunate.
He has learned his lesson, and there's no more of these cute little short kicks that we're gonna, try to pin them deep. Let's just take the return kick out of the equation and let's just kick the ball out of the end zone. So
I mean, aside from that one punt return, I mean, I would give Sam Martin he might be, unfortunately, he might be the MVP of the day. I mean, he pinned him in. He controlled field position a couple times. He pinned him inside the 5 twice.
No, I'm not blaming. I
mean,
Sam
I'm saying that might be the MVP of the game right now. Unfortunately,
I mean, Sam Martin had 10 kicks for a 49 yard average, a long of 68. Four inside the 20.
Hey,
Sam did his job.
Yeah, that was the MVP of the day. We were hoping McManus would be the MVP, but it ends up being Sam Martin instead. So there's a bright spot. We have a guy who's been able to pin it inside the 20.
Brandon got me 1 point in my fantasy league, so
that's all I got.
Teddy got me 6 points before he went out. So.
Yeah, I think I got 6.9 from Tim Patrick, if I remember correctly.
That's what I got. Yeah, right around there as well.
Yeah.
So
Lamar played phenomenal. I'll give him that. If there's one thing that we were harping on him for the last couple of days or weeks, whatever, is we got to force him to play our game. We got to force him to throw the ball. Force him to throw the ball.
And this is Carson. This is Carson who's saying this, but Lamar was phenomenal.
Yeah. One thing that I did see, that the one change I saw in our team the entire game is that we finally just started bringing pressure on Lamar. And that did start changing the game plan from, at least it wasn't wide open throws deep or crossing routes to deep tight ends. And
right.
It changed the game plan, at least there, where he's having to get rid of the ball, or he's getting sacked, or he's getting, throwing it away, whatever it happened to be. But that's the only change. But that also brings me back to something that I've touched on just a couple of times in the last 3 weeks, and we're not getting pressure with 4 typically at all.
No, we're not.
We're always having to bring somebody else in order to try to get any type of pressure. And today it was bringing typically 2 in order to get pressure on the guys.
This is a good comment here. Because Detroit forced Lamar into this kind of style of play, and it almost got them the W. What happened today is we didn't follow in Detroit's footsteps. We broke down. We played soft coverage. Another player.
Missed assignments.
Is injured.
Everything. I mean, we talked about Alexander Johnson in the pregame show.
Yeah, he didn't play terrible.
And I've seen times when guys just ran right by him.
Yeah.
And he's like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
This team was not prepared. I'll just say that. And a lot of that goes back to coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
what it feels like this team came into offensively was we're going to attack their beaten up secondary, and defense, they're a finesse team. Let's play them finesse. Because, I mean, they called Pat Surtain out on it on a first down play. He didn't jam him at the offense at the line of scrimmage. He just let Duvernay do a little sidestep, and there you go, first down.
Yep.
There was just the physicality was not there today. I mean, and that's the type of team this team has to be if we want to see games won. We're not a finesse team. We're not going to go out and put up the 40 points a game. We're going to smack you in the mouth and play physical. And we played very finesse today.
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of surprising to see all the zone defense and very little blitzing at all, you know. Obviously, we're trying to contain Lamar early, and that soft coverage behind was absolutely killing us. You know, like I said, dropping into zones the deepest route that Andrews had for a catch. You know, that was just a drop in the zone. I've seen it a million times on their tape, and it's a great play by them. But it just beats up zone coverage, and no pressure on him at that point. No, we weren't bringing any heat early in the game on Lamar, and time to sit back there and drop it, 20 yards downfield. Like you said, just a really soft game. So
it's frustrating week after week after week. We see this same defensive game plan as far as putting pressure on a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get there why don't you mix it up from the beginning? And bring a little bit more blitzing and things like that, and I'm not saying bring the house, but bring an extra guy.
Yeah.
We're not getting there with four guys.
Remember last year we were highlighting Vic Fangio when they were still rushing 4, but they were getting creative along the defensive line and pulling those stunts, having the edge flip over inside, going against the guard as soon as the ball was hiked, different things like that. We didn't see any of that creative pass rushing. And the other thing that happened is you guys highlighted it perfectly. In the first quarter, there was almost no pressure on Lamar. What that then led Lamar to do is let Lamar identify where the weakness was in the secondary, where were his key matchups, because we let him have all that time to essentially figure out where he knew where he wanted to attack, and it killed us. It killed us.
Yep.
You can't let a smart quarterback have all day, or they're going to pick you apart. This could be. It didn't have to be Lamar. If this was a Matthew Stafford, it probably would have been a similar outcome. These smart quarterbacks, you got to hit them, and if you let them have all day, they're going to pick you apart.
And the thing is, and a lot of people have this mentality still that Lamar can't beat you deep. No, Lamar can. I mean, Lamar has shown he can throw the deep ball. Last week against Detroit, and Carson brings up a great point. I mean, how many touchdowns were dropped last week? I mean, he can definitely throw the deep ball, and he's getting a lot more comfortable doing it. And they even brought it up in the broadcast now. I mean, towards the end of the game, teams that have to play Baltimore have to be getting scared because Lamar Jackson is a lot more comfortable in the pocket now, and he shows that he does have the touch to throw the ball deep.
Yep. Yeah, he is a different player than year one. Obviously, completely different player.
Right. And this comment here by Carson, I'll agree with everything in here except for this second to last thing. I don't know if the Broncos are going to be solid. We were solid against the 3 worst teams in the NFL.
Yeah.
I mean, did the players themselves drink the Kool-Aid? Do you think they were overconfident coming into this game?
I mean, it happens. I mean, do I think that's the reason they lost? No. I think they came. I mean, I think injuries, of course, played a part, but that's a layman's excuse. I think they came.
Everybody, because
that happens. I mean, the Ravens are just as beat up, if not worse.
Right.
What happened is they felt comfortable. They trusted this game plan that the game plan played a factor into it, and then the other thing is defensively, they felt comfortable with this finesse approach, and it bit us in the behind.
Right.
Yeah. If I'm gonna hang it anywhere, I'm putting it all on coaching once again. I think this was just a bad game plan that they had drawn up. They didn't they didn't really. I mean, the only thing they abandoned was the running portion of the game plan. The passing game stayed completely the same throughout, and even with injuries, I think that was, like I said, that's something that needed to change once Teddy Bridgewater went out. You know what I mean? That we should have been. I don't care, drawing plays up in the dirt, but things that fulfilled our guy better than the game plan that we had brought for Teddy Bridgewater. So
right,
yeah, absolutely.
I like this point here by Greg because this was insane. I mean, we talked about at the end of the first half, how before Baltimore punted, he let 30 seconds run off the clock, but then towards the end of the game, we're down 2 scores. Okay, we get downfield. Why weren't you calling timeouts earlier? You wait until there's 28 seconds left, and then you decide you want to start calling timeouts. Yeah. I just don't understand what Vic is doing over there. Yeah, the game sometimes is too big for him, I think.
I have kind of a crappy question, and I mean, I don't think that this is the case, but I mean, we're not in the headsets, we're not there, we're not in the coaches' minds, we can't read this. But do we think, maybe after the first couple drives with Drew Lock, the coaching staff just kind of knew that it was over unless they made some kind of splash play? Do you feel like they
why is the guy even on your team then? If you have
what I'm saying is, I'm saying after maybe let's say the 3 or 4, maybe 4 or 5 drives in, let's say midway through the third quarter, do you think they started to lose hope and just say, we're gonna, if it's not a splash play, it's ugly for us? And I'm not saying on the hands of Drew Lock. I'm saying this goes back to the ineptitude of coaching. Do you think at that point they started to doubt themselves, or lost confidence in themselves?
I think they didn't have the confidence to do anything.
I mean, they might have been gone at the second quarter. Who knows?
Yeah, no, I just think they didn't have the confidence. I'll agree with the fact that, there was pointed out on the broadcast, he was running the scout team. He was pretending to be Lamar Jackson all week, right?
Right.
I don't think they had the confidence to just go in there and start changing their game plan completely from what they had drawn up all week. I mean, they had, again, we talked about how young the offensive line was, and we had 2 new starting guards, and you know what I mean? Our wide receiver core is beat down, and we got, guys out there who was not the plan to be playing wide receiver. I don't think they have the confidence to go out there and say, okay, guys, scrap that, come over here. This is what we're running in the second half. This is what we're doing, and have the confidence to go out there and orchestrate it. I think they just went in and they said, okay, guys, we're staying true to it. It's going to come in. It's going to come through. Stay true to it. And what we saw was exactly what we saw. It didn't come about. So it was a bad game plan to begin with. They didn't have
absolutely. And as I said, I don't think it's the case. I'm just curious, at what point do you think the coaching staff lost faith in their ability to maintain this game? It's more along the lines of them and not the players. Because, I mean, Drew Lock came out
probably about the time when he was, as Dave it was pointing out, when he wasn't taking timeouts when he should be going down at the end of the half. That's when they gave up. In my opinion, there was a point. I just didn't understand that at all.
No, and I don't understand it at all either. And Greg brings up a good point here. He says, calling these timeouts at the end of the game is all you're doing. This game is out of reach with 28 seconds left.
Yeah.
51 seconds, I could see you hitting a big touchdown, and you still got time to do an onside kick and have another drive. But 28 seconds, come on, guys. And then what if you get somebody hurt?
Yeah.
What if Sutton takes a shot from somebody and he's gone for the season or something like that? This is just another mismanagement by Vic Fangio.
Yeah. I mean, points don't matter at that point, like you said. What you're just putting up, feel good points. You know what I mean, for the fans. Right. I don't know what you're doing. You know what I mean. Right. Maybe it doesn't look so bad on paper. There was no reason to be calling timeouts right at the end of the game when you weren't willing to do it at 2 minutes when you had a chance to actually maybe be still in the game.
Right.
Completely agree with you guys there. And I think you've seen that frustration. I mean, we've seen frustration from quite a few of the offensive players throughout the game today. We've seen Tim Patrick get a little frustrated. We've seen Teddy Bridgewater flustered with how things were going. And of course, we don't know the root cause of what's causing their frustration. But at that point in the game, I mean, like Cortland Sutton let's say the last play of the game, Cortland Sutton didn't give a damn to go for that ball. He's like, what's the point? It was
You're talking about the one that was to
the
the inside.
interceptor, the very last play.
Oh yeah, that one.
Yeah, I mean, what's the point?
There was even that other play where Locke threw it long, and Sutton didn't even make a play on the ball.
Yeah,
I mean, all he had to do was turn inside, find the ball, which you're supposed to do as a receiver, and adjust to it. And he made no effort at all. And Sutton just looked like he didn't want to be out there today after a while.
He had that first drop. Maybe he got in his head early. I don't know. But there's one person I just can't stop beating up on. And, unfortunately, it's not, unfortunately for me, it's not Drew Lock, because I feel like Drew Lock went out there and did the best of what he had. And, I mean, it was a lot to ride on your shoulders. I mean, it's coming. We've seen the starting quarterback get beaten down. He came in and he played as well as he could with what he was given. What I'm frustrated with is, what did we see work for Drew Lock all preseason? 2 tight end sets where they're chipping the edge, giving him a couple extra seconds in the pocket, and picking apart the defense that way. He was thriving in these 2 tight end sets, and we hardly seen him.
Yeah.
We were throwing him out in shotgun and running bootleg out of pistol as shotgun in a 3 wide receiver set where we've seen him struggle all last year. Why in the world did not? Where did we not make the changes there?
Right, and when he comes in, that's not a huge game plan change. I understand what Keith was saying. Yeah, you can't just revamp your whole offense in the middle of the game, but that should be part of your base West Coast offense. Is with the 2 tight end sets and stuff. So come on, Shermer, adjust. Yeah. So now we got coaches who don't know how to make in-game adjustment.
Exactly.
When a player goes down.
Fear for a while now, but what
it has been, Yeah.
I mean, and I understand, with Teddy Bridgewater, you get the flexibility of him being comfortable in either situation under center, but he prefers to be in the shotgun. That's just where he's at. With Drew Lock, we seen what lost him the competition was pocket awareness. What's going to help him keep a cleaner pocket when he's right there? When he's hiking it, he's already in the pocket. He's ready to make his read. He's not having to step up. He's not having to step to the left. He's in his pocket, and he can do his initial reads and move out. But we hardly utilized it today. I just don't grasp it.
Yeah. Like I said, if I'm hanging this any place, again, it goes back to coaching. It was coaching from the beginning. It was coaching till the very end. It was clock management, you name it. I know Carson, I just want to touch on this because I saw this at the very end of the day when he was talking about, what do you guys think about the 100-yard record continuing? The one thing I would say is our players had no idea that there was a record going. I don't know if you watched it to the very, very, very end, but obviously Lamar ended up taking the snap, ends up running it for 6 yards. They keep their 43 games of 100 yard rushing or more.
Right.
Our players did not care for that, but they didn't know that there was a record going, 2 at the same time. So it looked like just a pretty bad move on the Ravens' behalf to be running a play when they should have just been taking a knee at the time.
Right.
Do I care about it? No, because quite honestly, I think if we would have known about it and we would have lined up, there's a good chance they get 5-6 yards anyway and still keep their record rolling, and hats off to them. Obviously, that's a cool record to have. So
yeah, definitely.
I mean, unfortunately, it is what it is right now. We have to shift our focus to another. We kind of get back onto the underwhelming train of not where they had hoped they'd be at Pittsburgh. Unfortunately, they didn't win today. I mean, they played better today, though. They did play better against Green Bay today. But that's where we shift our focus to, and hopefully we come out with a more physical game plan, because Pittsburgh's another team that wants to be physical.
Right, and their defense is getting healthy.
Yeah.
And that's always been Pittsburgh's strength, is their defense. And I think a lot's going to depend on the severity of this concussion. Is Bridgewater going to miss a couple weeks?
All right, that leads me to 2 questions. If Teddy Bridgewater is expected to miss more than a couple weeks, does Denver look for another veteran quarterback?
Who?
I mean, there's probably somebody out there that has some familiarity with this offense. I mean, I'm just wondering because, unfortunately, as much as Locke is useful and this thing is not in terms of performance, but if he goes down, unfortunately, the Pittsburgh Steelers are the last team that took him out. I mean, not to say I'm superstitious, but I mean, with how badly our offensive line played today, that's even better front seven. They got Hayward, they got Watt, they got I think Hargraves is on their front seven. I mean, that's not an easy pass rush. I mean, I would say that's stronger than
if there's anybody out there that's better right now, then they should already be on your team.
Well, I'm just saying, I mean, in terms of insurance, because not returning to Brett Rippon, who wasn't even active today.
Well, he'll be active next week, of course.
I hope so.
With if Teddy's out, then Rippon's going to be the backup. He'll be active. I mean, do you really want to bring in a Cam or someone like that?
I don't think it would be
or whoever, and try to get them ready in a week.
Yeah, I don't think it would.
And try to build chemistry with teammates. I understand you may know the game, you may know the system, but if you don't have the chemistry with the players, how are you any better than what we have if you don't have chemistry?
No, I get what you're saying. I'm just wondering, as injuries start to pile up and it feels all too familiar of last year, is it time to be concerned and maybe stashing that other quarterback on the practice squad?
Yeah. I understand if you end up finding a guy, practice squad type of guy that you end up can maybe bring in. I mean, at some point, especially if this is anything long term, you don't want just to be rolling with a 2 quarterback set of Locke and Rippon and say that's what we're going to go for the rest of the season. I mean, obviously, Kenny, come on now. He actually isn't he already all locked up with the Jets? I believe I don't think
Eagles, isn't he?
He was with the Eagles, but I think he got after they traded for Minshew. I think I don't know if he's still there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they have Nick Mullins too. So they have. I mean, Eagles are taking the play. I mean, quarterbacks.
Well, bring Flacco back then. He doesn't need to train anybody.
There you go.
He's not here to teach anyone.
He has been in the Pat Shurmur offense at least a little bit. There's your familiarity.
I don't think Flacco would come back here.
I don't think he would either. I mean, maybe if he wants to make some more money on that merchandise line, Flack, Co.
Steven Montez.
Steven Montez.
Yeah. Where's? Oh, there we go. Can we get Steven Montez? But no.
But in all seriousness, hopefully it's just hopefully he can be back next week. I don't know if that's even possible. Obviously, he goes into concussion protocol, and then how much time is he able to actually spend on the field and taking first team reps this week heading in, and so it's obviously to be determined until we actually get a little bit more information coming from the Broncos and Teddy's team. So hopefully he can come back. I'll be honest. I think if the Broncos, again, if their coaching can go in with a good game plan against Pittsburgh with Teddy Bridgewater at the helm, we can get back on track. We had a good running game going. I know that Dave had some numbers that just proved that out right before we went on. I mean, we were averaging north of 4+ yards per carry by both guys before we completely abandoned the running game. And there's some things that we can just hopefully game plan correctly for going into Pittsburgh and hopefully with Teddy Bridgewater, right? It was just it was tough to see Drew Lock out there, kind of looking like Drew Lock, but I don't put this completely on him.
This is not.
I don't either. And Keith, you brought this up earlier, and they brought it up in the game, and this just seems sort of like growing up, it never used to be this way. Your number 2 quarterback never ran the scout team. You had a practice squad guy or a third string guy who would run the scout team. That way your second string guy can get in some work and be involved in the game plan. So is this a new trend in the NFL, or is this another coaching blunder by the Broncos that your second string guys not even being involved in the game plan and working it in practice?
100% a blunder on the coaching staff. 100%. There's not.
I mean, why is Drew Lock Why is your backup quarterback running the scout team?
The excuse was that
you could have had David. You could have had the young cat they just signed, Moore, running that practice squad quarterback to give you the speed and versatility. He wasn't going to come in and learn the game plan in a week.
Right.
I mean, you could utilize.
They said the initial plan for this was going to be Kendall Hinton for obvious reasons, but then with the wide receiver issues that we had, Kendall Hinton had to be taking those first team reps, so they put Drew Lock in as the scout team QB. But like you're right,
and this is just another coaching blunder.
You can throw any guy back there with speed and say this is your QB. I don't care if he's throwing it in the dirt. You know what I mean? It's all about what the offensive line, or I mean, what the defensive line and how the linebackers are reacting to a fast guy behind the line of scrimmage that's supposed to be throwing the ball. Doesn't need to be the most accurate quarterback. My goodness.
Yeah, I'm sure they could have scraped up somebody a little bit faster than Drew that could have played this position.
So, absolutely.
I mean, this just it may screams at the ineptitudeness of our coaching staff.
I figured it out, though. They were just cross-training him for when he did have to go in the game.
Maybe. But switching gears to another serious note here. We did see another wide receiver go down today in Deontay Spencer. We don't know the severity of it, but, I mean, he is a smaller frame receiver. He took a nasty hit.
Yep.
When do we actually say, all right, well, now we're down 3 receivers. We need to actually invest in some actual veterans here, because there's actually a plethora of wide receivers out there on that veteran market.
Golden Tate's out there, and Golden Tate wants to play.
Yeah,
John Brown is right there as well.
Right.
At what point?
There's Brian.
At what point does this personnel department wake up and say, hey, we need to invest in this depth? I mean, now Kendall Hinton's responsibilities are going to be expanding possibly more with Spencer out, because there's our returner now.
Conspiracy theory. Peyton doesn't want to give Fangio any more ingredients. He's just going to watch him fail so he can fire him.
It's a possibility. I mean, you never know. But
I don't. No. I think it's honestly, there's a couple of things going on. I mean, it's not like you're, the LA Rams and you're like, hey, we're down a wide receiver. Do you want to come play for us? You know what I mean? At that point, every wide receiver is like, yeah, I'm there. I'm there tomorrow. I'm driving overnight. Don't worry.
Right.
The Broncos just don't have the allure. They haven't had that allure since Peyton Manning came to town, and everyone started taking discounts to come play with the Broncos.
Hey, I mean, we got a lot of money in the bank, though. If we got to pay some of these guys a little extra, something for a 1-year deal, make it happen.
Yeah, but the one thing that I did like, and I think this, if I had to read into anything, I think Cortland Sutton and Teddy Bridgewater are 2 peas in a pod. They just mesh together. They've been playing well together. I think that's one of the reasons that Cortland Sutton obviously wasn't playing the same after he went out, right? And I forgot the second half of where I was going. So hopefully, anyway, there's that for you.
Hey, Kenny, you can't be exposing us, man. The coach is here with us.
Yeah, that's my stand-in is in Foxborough right now.
The body double.
Right, my body double.
Should be an easy win in Foxborough. You don't need to be there.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, with all kidding aside, it was their first loss. It's way too early to hit the panic button. A loss is going to happen.
Yep.
I agree. And we said this was our first test. It's just the way we lost.
Yeah. It felt discouraging.
It would have been better, or easier to take if we lost 27-21 or something like that. But to score the first points and then give up 27 unanswered points is inexcusable.
Yeah, it's a rough one to take, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rough one to take. Yeah, need to scrape it together. We had some good things. Hopefully they can learn and we can get the running game throughout the game up against Pittsburgh. Hopefully we can realize that even if a secondary and a defensive line is supposedly beat up, they can still be they can still be formidable out there, and you just can't game plan that they're not going to be there, because I think that's a lot of what we had going on there too. So
Absolutely.
love you too,
Kenny
Kenny.
showing some love. I scoured Twitter real quick. I'm not seeing any updates on Surtain, but there was something that I do want to point out that I did come across on Twitter. Mike Kliss is saying the earliest Teddy Bridgewater can practice is this Friday. At that point, do you just game plan with Drew Lock?
Well, you have to.
Yep.
But I mean, even if Teddy's cleared on Friday,
Right.
you're not
going to start him
this week.
Teddy might be your backup this game, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't see him being the starter if the earliest he can practice, and that's the key word, can, you know.
Yeah.
Because we don't know how Teddy's going to react to a concussion, you know, and
I did get an update on how he's doing as well. So he is completely coherent. He's doing fine. He was able to come back to the field and have some moments with the Ravens and Broncos and family. He's in very good spirits and seems to be okay.
Well, I mean, and that's good, because you don't ever want to see anybody get a head injury.
Yeah.
I mean, and don't rush him back.
You shouldn't.
Pittsburgh is they're not Pittsburgh, you know. If our defense can regroup, you know, and we can hold their offense in check, you know, I think we have a good chance with Drew Lock to go in there and have a competitive game and maybe even steal one on the road. But if Teddy is the guy for the rest of the year, don't rush him back, you know, because if he takes one more hit to his head, you know.
I mean, the dude can't keep his helmet on
right there.
either.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I did remember a little bit where I was going on my train of thought, guys. You had mentioned just bringing in any wide receiver just because of how depleted we're getting. You know, I think that team really felt like they had something really special going with Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater is a completely different leader than they've had in that locker room in quite some time. Mm-hmm. I think when he went out, that's when Cortland Sutton started checking out a little bit. And I think they're a little bit reluctant to just bring a guy in because he's had a good resume, or, you know what I mean? Or you know, spending the money just because it's that guy, if he doesn't necessarily build it, you know, was coming around to that team concept at the same thing. So
yeah, and I mean this, and there's a couple players our practice squad is actually pretty deep at wide receiver. There's Pearsonell, there's Williams. Cleveland was elevated to the main roster.
Mm-hmm.
There's another cat that's Rico something Givens is
Suave.
Yeah, Rico Suave, we'll call him that. Suave. He's a former Raider as well. I mean, and Moore will get his first real shot next week after getting a full week of practice. So, I mean, there is going to be some options that we do have in-house. I'm just wondering, like, when do we need another kind of, like, veteran presence to help some of these younger cats that are not used to running the slot? Because, I mean, Hinton's limited experience in the slot. Deontay Spencer's limited experience in there.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it just will have to be a little bit of a good mesh. I know that Golden Tate hasn't always had the best reputation throughout the NFL, always, you know what I mean? So, you know, that might not be the guy for that reason. That might not be why they ran to him right to begin with, because he does have a fantastic resume. Same reason that we were just joking around, but, you know, you don't bring Joe Flacco in and say, all right, now rally around Joe Flacco, guys. You know what I mean? It wouldn't obviously go right for a lot of different reasons. Hitting the Facebook user, I don't know if I would say I was surprised by Caden Stearns just because he's playing so well. But, man, he did show out. And for a fifth-round pick, he's doing fantastic. That's everything you would ever want out of a fifth-round pick.
Absolutely.
Is what Caden Stearns is putting on the field.
Completely outplaying his draft position, and we were concerned. And Denver actually caught some flack for taking him in the fifth round and taking him before the other safety we took in Jamar Johnson.
Right.
Everybody
said, shocked. "Oh, well, Caden Stearns, he had a great freshman year at Texas, and then after that, you know, he did nothing." I mean, the guy has talent. You know,
he's got swagger about him, and that's something that this defense needs.
Yeah, and he's showing it. Kenny brings up a good point here. Are all the injuries to key players becoming concerning?
Absolutely.
And I really think it is. I don't think we can't keep just turning this team into a mass unit, and running guys out there. And we saw it at the end of last year with the secondary, and now our wide receiver room is going through it. It's just it's tough to take it when the injuries usually focus on a certain position group.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean the next man up mentality only gets you so far. There's a reason there's a talent gap between Graham Glasgow and Austin Schlottman.
Right.
There's a gap. There's a reason why there's a third string and a first string. So as much as we go through next man up, of course they're stepping in and we're expecting them to play great, but there is going to be a significant talent discrepancy. And as you see them happening to the same position groups over and over and over again, that discrepancy becomes too large for teams to overcome.
Yeah. I will say, taking this a little bit larger scale, I think it's just becoming a little bit concerning throughout the NFL. We've got a lot of injuries. You know what I mean? I mean, I know it was kind of funny. I was thinking about it when we were talking a pregame with Carson on the show with the Baltimore Ravens, kind of representing there. And he was saying how beat up his team was. And I'm like, man, they are beat up. You're dragging this guy out with a bum ankle and this guy out with a bum knee and hoping this guy can still cover. Mm-hmm. But our guys on the other side are out for the season, out for 6 weeks, gone for the year. You know what I mean? That's where it becomes more concerning, is you're not getting some of these guys back.
It is becoming a concerning trend across the NFL. Yeah. And I think a lot of it has to do with the way the NFLPA has pushed back against the number of practices, the workouts and all that. And, these guys, are they hurting themselves by saying, well, we don't want to work out with the team. I want to go work out on my own, or, things like this, or, well, I don't want to have these practices. I don't want to have contact. Well, sorry, guys, this is a contact sport. You should have played baseball or something, or if you didn't want to, be in a contact sport like this.
You got soccer for a reason, man.
Man, I've seen those soccer guys. Those guys are pretty tough.
I don't doubt any of these guys' toughness. I think it's there. I think we all want to take the easiest route at work. I mean, that's just what it is. We want to try to do our best, but with the least amount of work possible. I mean, that's just how the human's mind's built. So I get where you're coming from. It's a poor choice, though.
Our jobs are a lot different than theirs, man.
No, I'm just saying. Nature.
If you look at the structure of it, they're willing to put in the work as long as it's paid work.
Hey, I got to put in work.
You know what I mean? Let's face it. It's the game checks that actually make the actual money for you. Right. You know what I mean? So the further you go back in that off season, the less and less you're getting paid to go out there and rip up your body possibly, right? So that's what they push back, but they push back, like you said, Dave, to the point that I think it's now become so detrimental to them that we're starting to see it widespread across the league. And it doesn't matter if you only play 3 preseason games or 2 preseason games or no preseason games. If you're not prepared coming into the game, you're going to start getting more injuries,
Right. And during this next CBA, it'll be interesting to watch and see if the owners push back and say, my investments are being hurt because of this agreement that we came to, so.
Yeah, I can't pay a guy $20 million a year to be torn up with his knee on the bench, hoping he comes back the next year.
Right.
Yeah, just something I want to highlight that I actually want to commend the Broncos on doing, because we talked about players want to train out outside facilities. Broncos went out and said, hey, we respect who your trainer is. They brought him in. They hired the trainer that all the Broncos wanted to work with in Lauren Landau. Yeah. And unfortunately, even with him being here and they're training here with him, it doesn't seem like it's made the significant difference that we had hoped.
And Greg brings up a good point.
Exactly.
Here too.
That's what I was going to highlight. Oh, wait, wrong person. Boop. Yeah, bigger, faster players. How do you strengthen body parts? I mean, there's ways to do it, but they're not legal, Greg. I'm sorry. I wish there was legal ways to do it, but
right.
But it's a great point, though. As the game changes, the players evolve as well.
Well, and you wonder when you get to the point where how long has Gronk been wearing that elbow device? You know what I mean? That's basically makes him look like he's like the Terminator out there. You know what I mean? So
right. And even at that time, look at Gronkowski. He was out. He's missing tonight's game with broken ribs because there's only so much you could do to protect yourself. Eventually, we're a human body. We're going to break down and break. That's what happens.
Yeah.
Couple things I wanted to touch on real quick is we're approaching the hour mark, which is cool with me if we go a little bit over. But Tom Brady has broken the record, as well as we were all wrong today. Tom Brady was massively booed by New England. They did not give him a standing ovation.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, I just saw it pop up on Twitter a few minutes ago.
Wow.
Yeah, interesting thing there. But I see a comment up here.
Sort of classless, if you ask me.
Yeah,
I agree.
Everything that would be like if John Elway at the end of his career went somewhere and then came back to Denver and everybody booed him.
I mean, we see him with Peyton and the Colts. I mean, but we got it. There's respect there, and I'm
Oh yeah, it wasn't. He's in a completely different. He's in the NFC. You know, it's not like even like went over to to the Raider. You know what I mean? It's if at the end of his career, John Elway ended up being a Giant. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, well, yeah, come back. We love you, Dan. So it's amazing. Wow.
One other thing that I want to touch on, because it's starting to grind my gears a little bit. There's a comment here that was mentioned about the quarterback situation, and I get it. We're all frustrated at the uncertainty of it, but the more I've had time to sit and stew on this, we've talked about big name quarterbacks next year. We've talked about Aaron Rodgers. We talked about Deshaun Watson. We talked about all of these things. And as great as it sounds to get these franchise guys, but what's the biggest thing that's going to derail a franchise quarterback like this? I mean, Rodgers, of course, we look at age. Both of these quarterbacks coming in with north of $40 million price tags next year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's rumors Rodgers wants $50 million. Well, that's going to eat the entire contract. And with our team and the way it's constructed, we already have over 50% of our starters scheduled to be unrestricted free agents. As much as I feel where you're coming from with all of this, star quarterback, but that's one player. There's 22 players on the football team.
Yeah.
And I get it. Quarterback is the most important position there is in football. That's the way the game has evolved. But if he doesn't got receivers to throw to, a line to block him, and a defense to keep the other team's points.
I look at it this way. If a guy comes in and demands that much money, I mean, it's sort of selfish, because then you can't put the weapons around you that you need. You can't build the team. That's one thing Aaron Rodgers complains about. You guys don't give me what I need to win, and now, but I want $50 million. So you guys figure out how to give me guys that I can win with a hit to the salary cap on my $50 million. It's like, come on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And if I was to speak directly to his point, back when John Elway came to us, he was obviously a top paid quarterback, but we don't see the contracts where the balance of the contract versus the overall salary for the team is so far out of whack. Now a quarterback can completely, let's face it, Patrick Mahomes' 10-year, $100 million contract that he got, is just going to kill that team for years. When Peyton came, Peyton didn't come at a high price tag. Peyton came because A, he was coming off a neck injury, and B, he knew that he needed to come in at a discount in order to put the people around him. And so he didn't come in demanding the most amount of money when we got him. So I understand, and I completely agree. If we go out and I love the idea of having Aaron Rodgers.
It's great that we have,
it really but is. We don't get the team that we have and Aaron Rodgers. You gotta make up the difference quite a bit, and especially if you look at our current quarterback, salaries versus what a $50 million salary looks like. That's a lot of changes. To a lot of changes.
Absolutely. And you can't sign your Cortland Suttons. You can't sign your Tim Patricks.
Yep.
So you really need to think about: do I really want this? Well, why don't these guys take some lessons from Brady? Brady has always been the guy who has he's reconfigured his contract, to allow for signing of other key players.
Yeah.
That's why the guy has 6 Super Bowl rings.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to point out another factor, we look at teams like, let's look at Green Bay, let's look at Houston and kind of where they're at. They're in weaker divisions where they can make do with a great quarterback playing with mediocre talent from wide receiver rooms. But then we see players become frustrated. Aaron Rodgers, I don't have the talent around me because the NFC North is getting better, and you're not putting any more talent around me. And it comes back down to exactly what you said, selfishness. You want those additional players, but you're not willing to sacrifice the paycheck to make your team better.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you even look at staying in that same division. Minnesota thought that Kirk Cousins would be the answer. Paid him a ton of money to come there. And as soon as they pay a ton of money, you can't compete because you paid a ton of money.
Right.
But now you have somebody like Chicago, and you have Justin Fields that's coming up. Well, Justin Fields is underneath a good contract. You can build with that. You can put great players around Justin Fields in the future. Obviously, they don't have it today.
Yeah, right. And one thing I'll highlight, though, once again, going back to divisions, as much as we want to bring in this big quarterback financial investment, the AFC West is not the NFC North or the AFC South. We're in we're in one of the most stacked divisions there is in talent-wise. I mean, the Raiders are 3-0. They're improving every game. Yep. Justin Herbert, franchise quarterback, is making players around him better. Patrick Mahomes, we already know what's going on there. And these are players that are going to be gravitating other players that come in. So if we can bring in a franchise guy, but if we don't have a team to compete or cover these other talented playmakers, it's not going to make a huge difference. And we've seen it best. We've seen games with Los Angeles and Kansas City a couple years ago. 52-49, I think, was the score. It doesn't matter what that score was. That you put up 49 points, you still lost to Kansas City with Jared Goff throwing all those touchdowns. It doesn't matter.
Yep. Yeah, if you think you have a hard time right now keeping up with Kansas City's offense with the defense that you're putting on the field right now, that defense is earning a lot of money. If you start cutting all that out, look out. Kansas City will just dominate you at that point. It's as simple as that. There's a reason that everyone was screaming that we need to sign Justin Simmons and not let him go. And, hopefully they just don't franchise and tag him until they finally let him go. And, everyone was screaming about that. But, that's a piece that obviously you don't keep around if you have a $50 million a year quarterback,
Yeah. All righty, gents. I think this is a good closing statement for us here.
Okay.
Bronco fans, it's one game. You're ahead of the schedule and still a solid 3-1 team.
Yep.
I'd be happy with my first quarter results. At the end of the day, we still are up we're up, in the AFC. We're still it's competitive division, but we got 3 wins, guys. It's not the end of the world.
I think we're where we thought we would be after 4 weeks.
Yeah.
We all discussed this at the beginning of the season that weeks 1 through 3, we should win those games, and we did. And this was going to be our first real test.
Yeah.
And hopefully it was just a poorly prepared and executed game plan and not exposure of our weaknesses on this team.
Agreed.
You get paid to make adjustments. It's only week 4. Make the adjustments, and I think we could still. This team is exactly where I think it's going to be on point to where a lot of us said it was going to be. I don't think any of us came in here and said, "Oh my gosh, Teddy Bridgewater, we killed the 0-9 stretch of, and we're going to be world beaters." I think we're exactly where we think we are. We're a fringe playoff team, and it's kind of like how Nick says over at 104.3 The Fan.
And I agree.
Plus or minus 2 games.
Yeah,
either way.
I agree 100% with what Greg says here.
Yeah.
We failed this test in a massive way.
But sometimes a major failure leads to a major success, though.
And maybe it does. Maybe it makes this team go back and refocus. Maybe these players were a little overconfident. Maybe the coaching staff had them drinking the Kool-Aid that, and then we go out and we face a team like the Baltimore, who, Baltimore could easily be representing in the AFC in the Super Bowl if everything goes right for them. They got the talent on that team.
Yeah.
And we get whacked around. Maybe that makes our players refocus and,
Absolutely.
hey, let's bounce back next week. Let's see what happens against Pittsburgh. And let's,
Hey, we're undefeated on the road still. Hey, that's
we are. We're 2-0 on the road.
Yeah.
So let's make it 3.
Yeah, and I'll say this: the last thing I'll end up saying here real quick is we're 1 loss away from with the Raiders. Only need to lose. We're tied atop the AFC West,
and still ahead of Kansas City.
Still ahead of Kansas City, right?
Right.
And the last thing, before we jumped on here, my wife came to me. She's like, "Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry the Broncos lost today." I'm like, you know what? My 2-time Super Bowl winning Broncos weren't undefeated. It's okay. We're all going to get a loss here and there. You know what I mean? So
Right.
it happens in the season. They're going to come along. So keep a positive mindset, like you said, Dave. Hopefully, it's just a game plan that we change around and we're ready to go.
Yeah,
come visiting the Pittsburgh Steelers. So,
and it sounds like this team's going to have to rally around Drew, and hopefully they do.
Yep.
And hopefully Shermer can put in a game plan that Drew can execute. And if Pat can't, then this is a coaching issue. And not Drew Lock, because we saw what Drew Lock can do. Drew Lock can be effective if you give him the right game plan. So,
100% agree, Dave.
Yep.
All righty, gents. Well, I think the time has come.
Guess we'll see everybody Wednesday night at 6:30, huh?
Yeah, and we'll have a clear picture of what we're heading into as we go on the road to face Pittsburgh.
Yeah, we'll know a lot more about injuries and things like that. So they're saying it's a chest injury for Surtain. So just not sure how long that's going to affect him. So,
all right, guys.
Is Darby ready to come back?
Ooh, yeah.
Hopefully. All right.
Hopefully.
That'd be nice.
Thank you, Greg.
We will do our best to keep you guys updated as the week goes along. Be sure to tune in Tuesday. Fantasy Blitz will be on, I believe, 5 p.m. Come hang out with Scott Cole and one of his various co-hosts and get some good fantasy information. Catch us Wednesday, 4th and 99. I think we're going to do 6 p.m. or 6:30.
Either or.
All right. We'll figure out the deets and we'll get it to you. But as always, it's been a pleasure. Thank you to all our sponsors again, and
thanks to everybody for all the comments and everything else.
That
makes the show a little more enjoyable having comments from the guys watching. So
absolutely, and don't be afraid to share us out there. We're always looking for people to come on and give their opinion. If you want to get out the comments and come on the show, you're more than welcome to. We're just an ever-going platform, and we just like to have good conversation. So feel free to share us, come join us, and let's talk some Broncos next week, guys.
All right. Sounds great. Everyone have a good evening.
Yeah, have a great evening. All right.